Good evening. My name is William Walker, and this evening I'm going to be going over the history of the special education laws. From the get-go, children with disabilities has had a rough time. If you look back through history, they got a bad deal, and they was discriminated against as bad as anybody in the country. People thought that they was dealing with disabilities, that it was somehow going to be that you could catch it or contagious. It was a sad situation. In 1893, the Massachusetts Supreme Court made a ruling that children with weak minds and made noises could be expelled from school. That's horrible. It's just sad to think about the situations back then. In 1910, the White House Conference on Children focuses on children with disabilities, which led to allowing these children to attend public schools and segregated classes instead of institutions. This is the first opportunity that a disabled child would be included, even if it was in a segregated classroom. In 1910 through 1930, more schools in the U.S. Moved to create segregated classes. 1954, the Brown versus Board of Education. This was a monumental case for disabled children. And I'll be going over this law a little bit more in detail in just a moment. 1958, Education of Mentally Retarded Children Act, providing funding to train teachers of children with mental retardation. This is the first mention of the country and our government realizing that they're going to have to spend some money on training for the teachers to help some of these children. In 1965, the Elementary Secondary Education Act provided federal money to improve education to all disadvantaged students. This was very, very important that it's got its own line for money being given to it. 1970, the Education of Handicap Act replaced the previous act to consolidate expanded programs for the students with disabilities. 73, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act states that no one that has a disability can be discriminated against. 1975, Education for All Handicapped Children's Act ensured students received an appropriate education in their least restrictive environment and developed an IEP for the students. In 1990, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, renamed EAHCA, changed the language for the better and extended IEPs for 16 years and older. The Mills versus the Board of Education of the District of Columbia used the previous case of Brown versus Board of Education to have equal education for all students, even with students and disabilities of other cases similar to this one become popular in many states. However, many states did not have the funding to update this facility and the knowledge of how to provide an education for those students. These cases pushed the federal government to step in with laws that eventually led to IDEA. IDEA is the Individual Disabilities Education Act This act was originally written in 1975 and then rewritten in 2004. The law ensures that students with disabilities have their rights protected and grants them the free and appropriate education in the least restrictive environment. Once a student is eligible for special education services, an IEP, individual education program, must be written with a team made up with a regular education teacher, special education teacher, parent of the student, a person to explain the results and evaluation, a liaison of the education department, and anyone else who may have special knowledge to this child. We're going to help these children, and the government has stepped up to say that. There's many resources out there to help the parents. Tennessee Department of Education, very easy to use. The difference between IEP and 504 plan, and resources for parents and families. If you need to find it, these sites are very user friendly. Thank you very much for your time.